Good afternoon and welcome. Alexander O'Brien here. Today we're going to discuss the organizational design, structure, and the need for change in the U.S. military. We're going to focus today on the military's quality of management. We'll discuss the ramifications on the organization, the relevance of organizational structure, design, and its current culture. We'll talk about the embodiment of conscious culture and how it affects management. We'll use Kotter's 8-step change model to develop our plan. We'll discuss possible challenges with the plan, and we'll discuss lessons learned, strategies, how to build the culture, and how we will manage the change. We have identified 3 major issues with the current state of the management in the military. The first and most important is suicide. U.S. Army has identified a 30% increase in deaths by suicide in 2020 based on 2019 numbers. This was done based on a Brooks study based in 2020. Suicide is obviously a huge deal, and any leader should be looking to reduce the statistic to 0. The military is also facing a retention problem, costing the DoD millions in retraining costs and the loss of knowledgeable people. Additionally, military readiness, or the ability for a unit to be able to complete a mission effectively, is declining. Low morale is also leading to a decline in quality personnel electing to volunteer their service. Lower quality people meaning joining for the wrong reasons, like not having a higher purpose, which will be discussed later. Current ramifications and consequences. As you will see based on this slide, each one of these bullets here is self-perpetuating into a bigger problem. If we don't correct the military's leadership issue, we'll likely see a suicide rate increase based on the last 5 to 6 years. Military readiness will also affect deterrence. Deterrence is a major tool used by most militaries to avoid conflict. Readiness is how quickly, lethally, and effectively a military can respond. Conflict is more likely when another military views ours as weak or vulnerable. As stated earlier, quality of volunteers will decline, also affecting this readiness and deterrence factor. Lastly, leadership will continue down this downward spiral trend we are currently seeing. The current design is slowly but surely self-perpetuating itself into failure. Organizational structure, design, and culture's influence. In its current format, a member entering the military can expect to see a recruitment phase, training, evaluation, promotion, and then eventual retirement. Each phase has its own issues, starting with recruitment. Most recruiters are forced into their position, so they face low motivation. They also use tactics of deception to increase the likelihood someone will join an unfavorable position. Training is also broken in that the military focuses on speed rather than quality. The evaluation system needs revamping as well, in that most people evaluate themselves, submit that to a supervisor who usually doesn't take a lot of time to look at it, and then that increases their likelihood for promotions that they may not deserve or be prepared for. Retirement in its current form, I believe, is structured well. It is still increasing the likelihood people attempt to join the military just because the benefits are really nice. Culture in its current form on paper, I believe, is where it should be. Each branch of the military has an idea of what the culture should look like, using loyalty, duty, respect, honor, integrity, and courage as its basis of values. However, execution is lacking. The influence on effectiveness, based on earlier discussions Jenkins did in 2006, this lack of structure and design, or the brokenness of it, leads to degradation in that military readiness, that global deterrence factor, and then overall the national security of the United States. The principles and values of conscious capitalism. So we've broken conscious capitalism down into its 4 tenets here, and then we've asked ourselves the question whether or not the military is meeting that standard. For conscious capitalism, do their leaders ethically inspire loyalty and high performance? I would say in its current state, yes, but in the wrong way. Currently, military leaders are using these fear tactics or scare tactics as far as do it or else. They face potential reductions in grade, reductions in pay, or even legal action if they do not conform to what is required. Stakeholder orientation. Are all stakeholders, i.e. employees, customers, community, and environment accounted for? I would say over the last 10 years, the stakeholder orientation has improved, whereas earlier the military gave no regard for its environmental or community factors when conducting missions and operations. again, the biggest factor we're facing here is the lack of leadership for employees. Conscious culture. Is there a value-based culture that is intentional on how people should act and perform? I believe on paper, as stated earlier, yes, execution needs work. Higher purpose. Is there a true value and purpose above the individual level? Here, I believe the military does very well. It does a good job of recruiting people with a passion to serve before themselves, to serve their country. Next, we'll take a look at Kotter's 8-step model and how we'll use that when executing our plan. The first here is to create a sense of urgency. And I believe the urgency is glaring and in the face of most people in the military, and the fact that the suicide rates are so high. So we know we have a need for change. We then need to build a powerful coalition of effective people to guide, coordinate, and communicate these activities. So we need the buy-in of leaders of every level as well as subordinates at the lowest. We need to create a vision. In my mind, the vision could be to reduce suicide to zero, improve unit morale, and then that'll boost the other factors that we talked about earlier. For this vision, we need to communicate it, which is step 4, so that we can rally the troops around a common opportunity. Next step here, we need to remove obstacles. Currently, the military faces a huge inefficient process for implementing even the smallest change. We see even multiple levels of people who need to be involved on small changes, like putting up a poster on the wall, for example. We need to remove these inefficient processes and enable freedom for people at the lowest level to make and generate a real impact. We need a way to track, recognize, communicate, and reward small successes so that we can sustain the change, which is in step 7, where we press hard after these initial successes, revamp and develop a process or improve the system, and we increase our credibility. This ultimately leads to institutional change, where the new culture has now become the social norm. Potential challenges. One of the toughest challenges faced by leaders is motivating people to change and the resistance to that change. Resistance is usually created because of a certain blind spot and attitude which staff have as a result of their preoccupation with the technical aspects of new ideas. Open communication throughout the change process will be critical for overcoming this challenge. A famous quote from one of my commanders is, "I need this done yesterday." It captures the idea that the military wants its results quickly, and in order for change to be effective, we need to manage our timeline expectations. Finally, bureaucracy. The levels that need to be involved to implement a force-wide change can reach as high as the President of the United States. We need a detailed plan for addressing each level so that we can be effective and quick. Lessons learned, strategies, building culture, and managing change. The military in its current form tends to lead in the transactional side of leadership, and it's primarily based on the processes and control and requires a strict management structure. If we get some buy-in from our upper level leadership, we can transform into, or move rather, to this transformational leadership, which focuses on inspiring others to follow and requires a high degree of coordination, communication, and cooperation. The structure and culture of the DoD, I think on paper, as stated previously, is well defined. However, it does seem to be about 20 to 30 years old based on previous wars. We need to go back in, refine, and then more importantly, adhere to this doctrine so that we can implement the intended culture. For managing change, we're going to use the model described in the book by Griffin et al. 2020. We're going to consider global issues. This keeps us in touch with the latest global developments and how to change is handled in different cultures. We want to take a holistic view of the organization, which helps anticipate the effects of change on the social system and culture. Start small, work out details, and show the benefits of the change to those who might resist. We want to secure top management support, which again could be as high as the President of the United States, which gets dominant coalition on the side, dominant coalition on the side of change, safeguards structural change, and heads on problems of power and control. We want to encourage participation by all levels in the military so that we can minimize transition problems of control and resistance to task redefinement. We want to foster that open communication, again, encouraging participation at all levels, and then ultimately reward those who contribute to that change. These are my references. Thank you for listening today. I hope you have a good day.